All right, so now the next component of the vocals is going to be the ambience around the vocals. And actually for pop, for urban, for reggae, for any of these kinds of genres, I would say that the reverb construction is really almost as important as the treatment on the vocal itself.
It's taking over, we're catching vibes. Pulling me closer, baby, I'm magnetized.
So I think for this vocal, because it's already a very connected vocal line, I don't think that I need to have a very long reverb to help connect it even more. I think a shorter reverb is going to help just to give it a little bit of color and depth. And I think that adding in some delays just to kind of give it a bigger, more dancey kind of feel is going to help as well. So when I'm setting my reverb, I'm going to be listening really for color. And when I'm setting my delay, I'm going to be listening for groove. This would be as opposed to like, say, like an anthemic kind of rock song where if I'm setting the delay, I'm really trying to create this feel that it's like in a stadium. That's a completely different vibe. So the first thing I'm going to do here is create a couple of boxes. And I'm going to send them to my vocal channel. And we'll call this one our reverb. And we're going to call this one our delay. Stop the presses. I know that's crazy. All right. I'm going to start with the reverb. I usually like to start with the reverb. I'm going to put it into pre-fader mode for now, which is going to help me monitor the reverb and sort of customize it, which you'll see in a moment. So when it comes to reverbs, particularly if you're using the Verb Suite, you have a lot of options. So it can almost become like daunting and confusing to pick one when you have like 8 million different choices. So I usually like to imagine what I want to hear before I start to look for the appropriate one. So what I want to hear is a reverb that's going to give the vocal a little bit of that like poppy sort of sparkle, something that's going to give it like a little bit of width and a little bit of shimmer, something that's going to help give it a little bit of depth. And so when I start adding all those things up, I know that a plate is going to be a good choice. And the reason why I want a plate is because an actual plate delivers the high frequency information before it starts delivering the low frequency information. There's something called the dispersion effect, and it allows different frequencies to propagate earlier than other ones. This is sort of replicated in reverbs by using different parts of the envelope. And so with plates, you're going to get high end first, and that makes the overall sound of the vocal a little bit shinier. Now, when it comes to getting that sort of breadth and sort of shimmery quality, I'm almost always going to be thinking FG480 because the construction of it uses something called chorusing to help break up any sort of metallic rings that would show up. And that's as opposed to like, say, the FG7, which uses just more taps at random placement. So you end up getting this much lusher, smoother sound. If I wanted lush and smooth, that would be a better choice. But really what I want is kind of that chorusy shimmer. So this happens to default right away to the FG480 plate. This might already be a good place to start.
It's taking over, we're catching vibes. Pulling me closer, baby, I'm magnetized. So used to dodging feeling.
Like right off the bat, I kind of dig how that sounds. Now, I might go in there, I might maybe pull something else up, try a couple different things.
It's taking over, we're catching vibes. Pulling me closer, baby, I'm magnetized.
That's pretty cool. It gives me a whole lot more body and a lot more spread. Obviously, it's pretty loud. So maybe what I'll do is I'll turn it down and then go back between some of these different algorithms and see what really complements the vocal the best.
It's taking over, we're catching vibes. Pulling me closer. It's taking over, we're catching vibes. Pulling me closer, baby, I'm magnetized. It's taking over, we're catching vibes. Pulling me closer, baby, I'm magnetized.
So my feeling is that this FG480 A plate is already the one that I want. Those other plates, they sound good, but because they spread so much and this is such a sparse arrangement, the reverb starts to stand out a little too dramatically.
taking over, we're catching vibes.
Now, there's a few other things I can do to sort of customize this if I want it to fill out a little bit differently. Like for one thing, I can kind of separate the reverb from the vocal a little bit and get the vocal to kind of stand more on its own using this pre-delay.
Taking over, we're catching vibes. Pulling me closer, baby, I'm magnetized. So used to dodging feelings, but this feels nice.
And if I want a little bit less of that high end, because it is pretty darn shiny, I can just sort of turn this down a touch.
Taking over, we're catching vibes. Pulling me closer.
And we can experiment with the chorusing a little bit too, because we wanted that very specifically. We're going for that sort of shimmery thing. Maybe we want a little bit more of it.
Taking over, we're catching vibes. Pulling me closer, baby, I'm magnetized. So used to dodging feelings, but this feels nice. So give me more of it.
So that to me sounds pretty darn good. That said, I'm very, very particular when it comes to my ambiences and my reverbs. So what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to mute the dry vocal, and I'm going to listen to just the reverb in context of the record. So there's a couple things I want to do here. First of all, in this verse part, I'm going to want a slightly narrower reverb. And the other thing that I want to do is I want to actually EQ it so that it's a little bit more open sounding. So we're going to pull up our VMR. And we can do a few things to it. Sometimes I actually like to experiment with like throwing VCC on my reverb return as well. Kind of dig that actually. We might end up keeping that. And then I'm going to grab the FGS. And there's like a lot of this like sizzly stuff that's happening in the upper mid-range. I'm going to kind of try and open that up a little bit.
Baby, I'm magnetized. So used to dodging feelings, but this feels nice. So give me more of it, girl, if you like.
That sounds pretty darn good. Let's bypass the VMR real quick.
It's taking over, we're catching vibes. Pulling me closer, baby, I'm magnetized. So used to dodge.
I think I want a little bit less of the drive from this VCC. I feel like it's maybe a little too printed.
Taking over, we're catching vibes. Pulling me closer, baby, I'm magnetized.
And once I've opened up the reverb, I can actually sneak a little bit more in there, and it can be a little bit wetter without sounding quite so reverby.
Taking over, we're catching vibes. Pulling me closer, baby, I'm magnetized. So used to dodging feelings, but this feels nice. So give me more of it, girl, if you like it.
I think I also want the timing of it to be just a little shorter. Feels like it's dragging just a little bit over onto the next phrase a little bit too much.
Taking over, we're catching vibes. Pulling me closer, baby, I'm magnetized. So used to dodging feelings, but this feels nice. So give me more of it, girl, if you like it. I like your everything from head to toe. But I could show you things.
And you can hear how different it sounds like once it's dry. It's like the reverb doesn't even sound particularly overwhelming now that I've opened it up. But it's like once that reverb is gone, it's completely just dries the record in a way that makes it feel much blander.
I like your everything from head to toe. But I could show you things you've never known. So go on, just so bright.